Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to your communication skills class again. Today we are going to again thoroughly discuss some of the skills, language skills that we are going to take care of while this semester, and we will also see that which theories have actually developed this communication process and this communication cycle. To begin with, let's quickly recap yesterday's lecture, the previous lecture that we have already discussed, in which we have thoroughly discussed the communication. If you see on the slide, we thoroughly discussed that what is communication. So I hope that you remember what is communication. Communication basically is a process of communicating between two individuals. Now, what is this communication and what are these two individuals communicating between and amongst one another? These two individuals are actually sharing information. Now, this information is actually being exchanged from individual to individual through maybe signs, through maybe behaviors, or maybe a common system of symbols. So we discussed yesterday thoroughly that what is communication and how exactly communication takes place. We also discussed that how do we communicate. We discussed the categories of verbal and non-verbal communication in everyday routine through which you provide the information. Remember, we studied that verbal communication is something that you communicate through words. So verbal communication is something that involves either your voice modulation or that can be written. So in other words, we say that verbal communication is something that can be spoken or that can be written. However, on the other hand, we discussed the non-verbal communication that has something to do with your physical movements, your posture, your gestures, the way you are standing, the way you move, the way you talk, your eye contact, your hand movements, everything. Like everything, including that does not or is not being communicated through written or spoken is known as your non-verbal behavior. Non-verbal behavior are more universal in the nature. Like for example, you say goodbye. Now this waving of the hand has something to do with saying goodbye. That can be universal, or anyone, any foreigner can understand that you want to or you are saying goodbye to him. Or something like that, you go to a foreign country and you want to purchase something, and you go into a shop and you point towards something saying, oh, and the shopkeeper, he would automatically understand that you want to see that, or you are inquiring about the price of that, or maybe you want to purchase that. So this is how your verbal communication is sometimes in a low frequency or in a low percentage as compared to your non-verbal behavior, because your non-verbal behavior is a highly communicative purpose of telling about your everyday feelings, everyday emotions, and everything to your receivers. So till now we have revised about that what is communication and what does it involve, and then we have talked about the how do we communicate. Now third thing that we discussed yesterday was what is a skill. Now we differentiated between the abilities that you have when you try to polish them, and that is something to attain that competence level which you feel is somewhere within you, but you want to polish that or you want to enhance that would automatically become your skill. So I have given you some examples in the previous class as well. We talked about the language skills, the 4 basic language skills that would be our main focus of, that would be our main focus throughout our semester. We discussed 2 receptive skills. The first one is listening and the second one is reading. Now, once you are listening and once you are reading from the paper, actually you are trying to consume the information, or actually you are receiving the information. However, if you are speaking to someone or if you are writing down something on the piece of paper, you are, in other words, actually trying to produce the information and trying to convey that information to someone else. So 2 of your skills, listening and reading, both of them, they become your receptive skills. However, your speaking and your writing, they are your productive skills in which you are actually producing the information. So the more common and more useful your speaking, the more useful your listening and reading are going to be, the more helpful they would be in your speaking and writing. Then we also discussed about the types of communication. That one I have already elaborated to do. That has something to do with your verbal and non-verbal communication. We also discussed some of the styles of communication, like some people they talk in aggressive tone, some people they talk in a very submissive tone, some people they talk in assertive tone. So tone varies from person to person, and it also is dependent on situation to situation. Then we also discussed about the communication cycle. If you remember, I told you that communication cycle has to follow one pattern in which you are going to have one sender send a message to someone. Now this cycle will go in a circle. The sender will send or encode a message that he will send to the receiver through a proper channel. Now this channel can carry barriers, that can be external noises or that can be internal noises. That very receiver will decode the message, will interpret the message, and then will reply back to the sender or send the feedback, and here your communication cycle would complete. So this is how your communication cycle, although it looks very simple, but that's not very simple. But yes, when it comes to communication, things are really very simple if you are a good communicator and if you are a good professional. Then we also talked about the communication in workplace. We thoroughly discussed that how you are supposed to communicate in the workplace. That one is today's lecture, in fact, is also the continuation of communication in the workplace and how you can help yourself communicate better on your workplaces. So today our topic of concern is the theories of communication, like how many people in our history have given the theories of communication and how actually they feel, and these renowned people and these famous people think that these theories of communication have developed with the passage of time. So to begin with, as I told you yesterday, that it is very necessary to understand the linguistic structure that we have for communicating from one corner to the other. Now, if you see on the slide, let me pick up the pen and I'll explain it to you that how this linguistic chart functions and how this linguistic chart is all about. Now, if you see on the top here, now if you see on the top this word phoneme. Now, if you see, the word has been derived from the word phon. Now, this phon means sound. Now, language or any language, that can be Urdu, that can be English, or that can be French, that can be Chinese. All the languages, they carry their smallest sounds. Now, let me write it down. These smallest sounds can be like, for example, our concern in this semester is to improve your English language communication skills. So to improve them, it is very important to understand that you are going to talk about the smallest sound units in the English language. Now, what are these smallest sound units in English? These are A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. So all the letters, all the alphabet in English language are your phonemes. All the alif, be, pe, all of these alphabet in Urdu language, they are your phonemes. Okay. Now, for pronouncing each and every phoneme and each and every sound, you have a specific pronunciation and you have a specific sound. If I say D, of course, you understand D, D for duck. If I say the word G, now you understand the word G, that stands for goat, or that maybe can stand for anything else. Now, every particular alphabet or letter in any language has got its own sound. Now, that sound has been attributed to that very word. That makes it a phoneme. Now, these alphabets or these letters of the language, they carry different sounds. For writing their phonetic transcriptions, there are some specific patterns, and for pronouncing them, there is something, kind of that is somewhat very different from everyday life, and that is very different from everyday routine. So the study of all these sounds is known as phonology. I hope you are noting down each and everything, because this is very important for you to understand, since these things will help you understand that how language actually functions and how language actually exists in our society. Now, sometimes you see that we communicate through sounds. Have you seen someone communicating through only A, B, C, D, E and F? No. All of these sounds, they combine together to give you a meaning, right? Now these phonemes, they combine together to give you a morpheme. Now they can be the combination of two or more phonemes. Like for example, let me write it on the other side, or let's write it here. Okay, it says that it's a combination of prefixes and suffixes. Now see, you have a stem word. Now sometimes you have a stem word like this. It can have a prefix or it can have a suffix, right? Now for example, your stem word is complete, right? Now if you attach this prefix incomplete, now does this word in stands on its own? Does this word in convey you a meaning? But this, no. But this word in can carry or can stand on its own, or this can be the combination of two phonemes, that is, one is I and the other one is N. Now these two phonemes, they are combining together to give you one new word that is known as a morpheme. That cannot stand on its own, but yes, by combining with the stem word, sometimes that conveys you a meaning. Then if we also attach a suffix like ly, that would make it completely, incompletely. Now this in and this ly, this is the combination of one phoneme, that is L, and the other one Y. These are the smallest sounds of the language. Now these two sounds, when they are combined with complete word, now this complete will become incompletely, and that would convey you one complete meaning. But if these in and these ly are standing in isolation, they won't give you, or they won't convey you a complete meaning for the word. Now this thing is very important to understand. These morphemes, if they are not there in the language, you will not sometimes get the complete message of the next person. Now in our everyday life or in our everyday routine, you come across some of the sounds which do not have any meaning, like oh, eh, and all of these kind of words, like they can be the combination of two or more phonemes, like this word yum, lu. Okay, so these kind of words, they can convey you some kind of a meaning, but they do not carry any meaning when they stand on their own. Now the combination of more phonemes make a word. Word is something that carries a meaning. Now let's write it down. That carries a meaning. Now if you open up a dictionary, you would find thousands and millions of words which are there in the dictionary that do carry one meaning. Now how are these words different from the phonemes and morphemes? Because phonemes are your smallest sounds of the language that cannot sometimes are conveyed, or sometimes they do not, possess sometimes. But once the phonemes, they are going to combine together, they are going to give you the morphemes. Morphemes, although don't give you any specific meaning, but yes, sometimes in some situations the non-verbal expressions, they also convey you meaning. Words, they carry a meaning, and you would find a lot of words in the dictionary that would provide you a meaning. Some of the words, they combine together to give you phrases and clauses. Now can you tell me the difference between phrases and clauses? Okay, let me explain it to you. Phrase is something that has a verb. However, a clause is something that, if not carries a verb, can convey you the meaning. Like for example, if I say, if a friend asks the other friend, if the friend calls him up and he says, "Where are you going?" and the other friend replies, "To the market." Now the other friend replied, "To the market." Now if this sentence would be standing in isolation, would that convey you complete meaning? No, because there the verb is absent. Now if you combine this verb going Would that convey you the complete meaning? Going to the market. Now this is giving you the complete meaning, and this will automatically become a phrase. Now if I say I am going to a market, it will become my whole sentence. Now this sentence is the combination of subject plus verb plus object. Now who is the subject? You, because you are going to the market. Going is a verb and market is your object. So this is how sentences follow one particular structure that carries subject is to be followed by a verb and then your object. Now a lot of sentences, to tell you the truth, the scientific study says and the technical writers, they believe that these smart length of a paragraph, a smart length for a sentence that shall fall between 15 to 20 words. It should not be more than that, because if it's longer than that, sometimes it's very difficult for your receiver to understand the message or the intent of the message that you want to deliver to him. So the best idea is to convey to them sentences that are kind of short and which are not very long, as to make them understandable by the next person. Now these sentences, they combine together to give you a paragraph. Now paragraph has got different levels. There is one introductory level. Then the second one is your explanation. And the third one is your closing sentence. Now your topic sentence will fall in your introductory level. That would explain that what the whole paragraph is about. The rest of the three sentences would fall here. There would be three sentences that would define the explanation, or that would define your topic, the main topic. Then there would be another sentence that would be your closing sentence, that would be helping you to wrap up your thoughts in one line. Now the ideal length for a paragraph is 100 words. That can fall between 75 to 100 words. Now, in other words, it means that if it's 100 words, then you have to have only 5 sentences maximum in your one paragraph. So make sure that once you are going to put your hands on writing down one smart paragraph, it should not be more than 100 words as to convey your thoughts completely. So every sentence will not be more than 20 words, and if they are not more than 20 words, of course your paragraph is not going to exceed its limits. All the paragraphs, they combine together to give you a longer text. A longer text that can be a combination of, or that can create one essay. A longer text that can help you develop your ideas together. That can be any abstract, any proposal, or any piece of paper that you are writing. Now, if you see the whole study, starting from phoneme to morpheme to word, then phrase, clause, sentence, paragraph, and text, all of them, they actually are your dialogues, or they are your everyday routine discourse, or your dialogue, interaction or communication with one another. You can communicate through phonemes. You can also communicate through morphemes. You can like yes, oh, yeah, no, and all these words. Then you can also communicate through words. You communicate through phrases and clauses. Then you communicate through sentences. Then you communicate through longer text. But yes, you do not convey your thoughts in the form of a text sometimes, because other than the rare situations where you go attend a seminar, where you go attend a meeting, and then you kind of read from the paper and then people are listening. So this is one kind of communication, that is one very extraordinary situation where you have to go. So I hope that you have learned about all these things that we have discussed on this slide. This is what we call our linguistic structure. Now, the study of all these things that fall under the language is known as linguistics. So for right now, we had been studying the linguistics. And this is what is all about linguistics, structure of English language that we have discussed in this slide. I hope things are clear to you, and now with that, let's move on to the next slide. Alright, in the beginning I told you that today's lecture is going to be about the theories of communication, but before actually starting up the theories of communication, that was really important that we learn about something about linguistics and how language structure is like, so that you can get to know that how these people, they have actually presented the ideas of, or how they have actually presented the theories of communication in front of their audiences. So if you look on the slide, we have written down the definition of theory. Theory is any attempt to explain or represent a phenomenon. Now it is basically trying to explain or represent a particular phenomena or a particular thing that is the center of discussion or the center of explanation or the center of representation. Basically, a theory, it helps to answer us how and why questions. So your theory would actually revolve around that how it happened, how is it different from others, how it developed, and why it happened, why is it different from others, and stuff like that. So if you rely on this how and why, you can create one theory and you can develop one theory that can explain or that can represent one particular phenomena. Now, characteristics of a theory is that theory is a kind of an abstraction. Now, there are some people like who have produced this gravitational theory and other theories, but that was something that had its concern with the practical application. But sometimes these theories, they are kind of, have got these vague ideas which are illusionary sometimes, and visions which have been assumed somehow about a particular phenomena. They try to explain that and they try to represent, and then they create their own theories. Now that is all happening on the background. There is nothing that is visible. There is no kind of the experimentation process like a scientist do. That is somewhat different from those theories which have been published or which have been explained in mathematics or physics. Now what do these physics masters or physics these people do? They have created some kind of formulas, and they have created some kind of these cubicles and all these, but they are also imaginary and they are also abstract ideas. However, something has been attached with them permanently, like if you write down this pi. Now if you look at this pi, this does not convey your meaning, but those people who have read maths would automatically understand that this is a pi. Now this is a kind of an abstract idea, like the thought of the pi has been actually conveyed on, or that has been attributed to, or that is sticking to the some of the symbol, or that is attached to some sign. So this is how you call it an abstraction. Theory can be an abstraction. You are relating one particular sound, one particular thought with something, with some phenomena, with some object, with something that you have made on your own. So the first idea that we have discussed, that theory is an abstraction. The second idea is that this theory is a construction. Now you have constructed that abstract idea on your own. If you take the example of this pi again, it is very clear that you have constructed this very phenomena of pi on your own, and that very abstract idea has been conveyed to the people. So this is one characteristic of a theory. Now if you are being asked in the paper that, or in the exam, that what are the characteristics of a theory, so you would automatically answer quickly that theory is a kind of an abstraction as well as a construction. So as Robert Cox said, theory is always for someone and for some purpose. So there should be someone for whom, or any phenomena for which the theory has been written, as well as there has to be one purpose of floating down one theory for your audiences. There are some goals of the theory that you are supposed to remember. Like for example, theory helps you explain something, that provides you the proper explanation of something. Theory helps you understand something, so it develops your understanding, your attitude towards something. Theory is a prediction to something. Now something has been already stated, and you predict different things out of that. Theory brings a social change. So there are some goals of the theory. It will bring a social change, it will predict something, it will help the audience understand something, and it will help to explain you different things. Now let's look into the different kinds of the theories which have been explained by different renowned people, and let's try to see the similarities and differences between them. There are a lot of theories of communication that have been presented by different renowned communicators, but I have picked up some of them so that you have some idea of that how these theories function and how these theories actually developed. Now the first theory, as I have picked up for you, is known as the two-step flow theory. Now it was actually introduced by Paul Lazarsfeld, Bernard Barsel and Hazel Gosch in the People's Choice. In 1948 study focused on the process of decision making during the presidential election campaign. So that was the background of a two-step flow theory. Actually, the two-step flow theory argued that ideas often flow from the mass media to the opinion leaders and from them to the less active sections of the population. So in other words, it says that your ideas are supposed to go in the downward direction. Like on the top you have your mass media, then you have your leaders. Mass media is actually conveying you the information through the active or these active leaders of the society, and from them to the less active sections of the population. So it is kind of moving from from 1 to 2 and then to 3. So it is decreasing in size. In fact, the lowest community is larger in number. You have lesser leaders and you have very less margin of the media, which is very broad and which is very has got this influence on everyone. But the fact is that this two-step flow theory is going to help you understand that how things have actually developed in our society. The next theory that we are going to study is concentric circle theory. It's kind of a circle theory which was actually developed by Elmo Roper. He was the pioneer in the field of market research and public opinion. Now let's see what kind of a theory that he has presented. Now that's somewhat like the two-step flow theory, in which things fall from the mass media to the less active members in the society. This is some kind of that theory that is related. These communication channels, they are related to one another. Now mass media actually is portraying the image of the leaders, and leaders actually they have their direct influence on the less active members of society. So who is becoming the most active member? Your mass media. That is going on to your middle portion, that is your leaders, and then your less active members. The concentric circle theory is somewhat like that, as the public at large moving in this concentric circles from the concentric circle theory stated the ideas evolve gradually to the large people of the circle, from great thinkers to great disciplines, then great disciplines to great disseminators to less disseminators, less disseminators to the active audiences, and to the inert. Now let's try to see the diagram that will help you see that how these ideas have developed. You have one particular idea. That idea has been floated by the great thinkers. Now these great thinkers, the ideas being produced by the great thinkers is being taken by the great disseminators. Now those great disseminators would politically, they are actually, you know, they are those disseminators, those great disseminators are actually politically very active. So they are politically inert. So this is how you keep on explaining one idea that has been produced or that has been explained by the great thinkers, which is to be transformed to the great disseminators, from great disseminators to the politically active people, and then it becomes politically inert. If you see, on the other hand, the ideas that have been disseminated by the thinkers of the society who are not very renowned, sometimes who are not very politically active, their ideas are not very politically inert. So it has to go on the opposite directions. Now moving on to the third theory of communication, that is the diffusion of the internet. Now as I said, that mass media has made a lot of change in our communication, in our everyday communication. We keep on, you know, learning from our mass media, and this media has made a lot of change in our society. Same goes with this internet. Now this diffusion of internet as communication tools has exceeded cultures, boundaries and geographies. Now this diffusion of internet has made a lot of change in our society, and that should be appreciated sometimes, and this is also creating problems for the layman or sometimes the middle class. The fourth theory that we are going to discuss is the convergence theory. This digital convergence theory emphasizes the new reality of convergence of new technologies. As I have told you, as we have already discussed the technology of internet, these technologies and this convergence theory actually relates to and actually tries to explain and emphasize on the new reality of the convergence of the new technologies. This means that these technologies integrate all digital media types, including videos, data, voice, in one medium, that is your mobile phone. Now you must have this Apple phone, this iPhone, this Samsung, Galaxy, and all these phones which are really, you know, have converged your life from meeting and greeting people into one mobile phone. Now what does this mobile phone carry? It carries internet, you can watch television there, you can actually connect with your people, and you are actually connected with your friends and family all the time. So what has it helped us to do? It has helped us to, you know, reduce our social circle. We are only relying on that very instrument that can be known as your mobile phone. So it has cut down all the communication channels, or maybe that's one reason why students today are you know, lagging behind in their spellings and then their communication mistakes. Another theory being presented by renowned Elizabeth Nolan-Newman was she has developed this theory, and she argued that people tend to remain silent when they feel that their views are in the minority. Now those people who feel that their views are in the minority, they tend to, you know, remain silent for some time. It might have happened to you once you had been to somewhere where there were a lot of people who had been talking to each other, and you would have been given a chance to talk, but you felt that your idea was some kind of different from the ideas the others were presenting. Or sometimes it happens, the teacher simply, if we take the example of everyday routine, it might happen to you that you are sitting in a classroom. Teacher asks, how many of you want to attend class tomorrow? There are very less hands standing up. Okay, and there are situations where teacher says, I am only, so how many of you are happy? So all of them, they raise their hands. So those people who are not raising their hand, they might be fearing that their suggestion or their feelings or their views are in the minority, so they cannot be, or they might not be appreciated. The so-called silent majority fears becomes isolated. So those people who do not take part in the activities with other people who are around them, sometimes they feel isolated and they are somewhat detached from the society. So there comes another theory, the spiral of silence. So there are few people in the society who do not communicate with us. So far we have discussed this internet theory, this mobile theory, then we have discussed this mass media theory. Now we have also discussed this silence theory. Now, why are we mapping down these communication theories? Now, public relations professionals should have an idea about these theories. Now, those people who are actually into the public relations or public relation management, they must have some idea about, or they should have some idea about these theories, because it basically represents the conceptual foundation which helps them understand the foundations of successful public relations strategy. So, they are supposed to be, very aware of what's going on in the society, so that they can modify and they can plan their future accordingly. Now, moving on to the next slide, let's quickly discuss the goals of communication. Now that we have talked about the different theories of communication which we feel are really very important once we talk about the everyday scenario and everyday situation where there are people who are in minority and they have been isolated. There are people who are so much attached to this mass media conversation and mass media communication. Though that mass media, it actually has got influence on the leaders who actually influence the this inactive class of the society. So there are theories being presented by different people who have actually talking about the facts. Now these theories have been actually constructed through the abstract ideas in the society. This concentric theory, this spiral of silence theory, this diffusion of internet theory, all of these theories, they have been actually talking about the facts of our society. Now, all of these facts are actually related to the communication. Now, this communication is something, or these theories have been actually communicated for the people, for their benefit. Now, the basic goal of communication is to convey the reality and facts to people. For enhancing or for understanding the goals of communication, let's now read the goals of communication in our daily life. Sometimes in public relations, communication should undergo a process of planning, management and reflection. So sometimes once you are trying to develop your public relations, you must plan things, you must try to manage things, and you must try to reflect things. In public relations, every act of communication has a goal, an objective and a purpose. So a public relations strategy always revolve around a particular goal, a particular objective and a particular purpose. If it has no purpose, if it has no goal, then of course your communication is going nowhere. Now there are four typical communication goals that you can very well see on the slide as well. The first one is informing. Now once you are trying to actually develop your relation with someone, or you are actually trying to communicate with someone, the first purpose or the first goal is to inform them. The second thing, you can communicate with people to persuade them. The third thing that you can communicate with people is to motivate them. The fourth thing is to build a mutual understanding. Now that I understand that all of you are BBA students, and you must be wondering that in your practical life how you can actually take with you these typical goals of communication. Now you would go, some of you would go in marketing, some of you would go in HR, some of you would go in finance. But the basic point is that all of you would have to communicate to someone in order to complete your job. Now for completing your job, you must try to understand that those who belong to marketing, those who belong to HR must know these tactics of providing the information, persuasion, motivation and building mutual understanding. Now you must know that how I am going to motivate my customer. You must know that how I am going to persuade my customer. You must know that how I am going to actually provide my factual information to my customer, and you should know that how you are going to actually build this mutual understanding between yourself and your customer. So for you, your circle, you are the sender who is sending or who is selling the product, and on the other hand, your receiver is someone who is your client and customer, whom you are providing the information. On the same hand, you are also trying to persuade him to buy your product. You are also trying to motivate him towards your product, and then you are trying to also build this mutual understanding so that that person is being friend with you so that he can buy your product. This is one art of marketing, HR management and finance. I hope that you will learn about these 4 typical communication goals in detail once we are going to elaborate them and explain them one by one. Now, the first one that we have talked about is providing the information. The communication goal of public relations is to inform a particular public. So, in your public relations, that is, or your main goal is basically to inform a particular public. Your second main goal is to, or the second main objective of providing the typical communication is persuading. You must know how to persuade your audiences. A regular goal of public relations communication is to persuade people to take actions. Now that you will be working in the company, maybe you are sitting on the higher management, and you must know that how you are going to persuade your subordinate to do his work. Motivation of employees to pull for the team is a regular organizational communications goal. So those employees must be pulled up for taking their task, and pulling up of the team is really very important communication goal once it comes to the practical and business life. Building mutual understanding, the 4th thing that we have discussed, let's try to relate that to your business scenario. Public relations communicators often seek to attain mutual understanding between opponents in a group, community or society at large. Sometimes there are people in your group, in your organization, with whom you don't have that good understanding that you have with your peer or any manager who is working in the same capacity. There are people whom you have got prejudices with, whom you don't like, you don't want to talk to. But the thing and the main idea about this for communication is, no matter you like them, you don't like them, this is business life, and you have to communicate with them for your own benefit. And how would you do that? By developing the mutual understanding. Maybe you both have become the strong enemies of one another, but you are supposed to communicate on the facts. Do not have lunch with them, do not go or hang out with them, but what you have to do is be nice with them for your practical purpose, because you have to take tasks from them and you have to involve them in your team, and you know that how you are going to take your work from them. So there are 4 things that we have discussed, how you can actually improve your what are the typical communication goals on which you are going to work, and how you would develop your communication skills at your workplace. The first one was providing the information, how through providing information you can actually communicate with your peers, your colleagues and people in your department or your organization, how you can actually persuade them to work, how you actually motivate them and pull them up to work, and how you can actually develop your mutual understanding with them no matter how much you hate them. Now, the publics of public relations are somewhat different people that you must know and you must have an idea about. Public relations people must communicate with many different publics, like for example, each having its own special needs and requiring different types of communication. Now, public relations, if you go in PR and if you go public relation management in some kind of, customer relationship care center, what you have to do, you have to every day talk to different kind of people, and there your communication should be very strong. you are going to talk to one Babaji who is coming from that Punjabi background in his language, because he will be very happy communicating with you, because you have to grow the number of your audiences. You would have to communicate thoroughly in English with a foreigner who is coming to your organization, and you have to satisfy his needs also, because this is your job to gather and to attract the attention of as many customers and as many audiences as you can. The lines that divide these public relations are really very thin. So if you are not going to be nice with the person who is coming to get help from you, they will be kind of annoyed sometimes, or they won't go happy from where you are sitting. So this line is really very thin. Those people, they should not try to hurt your feelings, neither you are going to do or say anything that is going to hurt them also. So this line is really very thin that you are going to especially take care of, and for the choice of words that you are using should be those words which are used in the practical life, or which are very highly professional. If the things are not available with you, or if you cannot help to provide them things, just simply say, let me check, but I am not sure that we have this, but I will make sure that you get them in the next week, or make them excuse in a very polite way so that they are not going to get annoyed. The overlapping potential is significant. So this overlapping potential is sometimes really significant once you are not trying to hurt the other's feelings. Now, a public relation of the publics of public relations can be classified into several overlapping categories. They can be internal or they can be external. The internal publics are inside the organization, like your clerks, your supervisors, your managers, your stockholders, and the board of directors. So these are those people who are sitting inside your organization. However, they can be external publics also, like for example the press, government, educators, customers, suppliers, and the community with whom you are, or who are not actually directly connected with you, but you have to sometimes communicate with them. Now, the function of public relation is somewhat, kind of different in the practical life. That one we are associating with the theories of communication, because you should not feel yourself, or you should not keep on sitting in isolation. You should not become that authority of, giving your orders to someone. You are the part of society, and you are supposed to be nice with everyone, because you are the public relation manager. Now, the function of public relation is, the first thing is writing a fundamental public relations skill. Now, that can be news releases, speeches, and brochures. Now, for example, you would be going, inshallah, into the practical lives, and you would see that how your boss gives you the orders. Sometimes he would tell you to give you or provide you the presentation for a PowerPoint presentation for the company's performance in the last quarter. So what would you do? Sometimes you would make that presentation keeping in mind that how to actually write down the technical material, how to actually produce that. Sometimes he would ask you to, you have conducted one function, or you have organized one function, and your boss would tell you to give a press release of that function, or a coverage of that function into the, or on the, in the newspaper, or maybe on the this electronic media. So you would have to, sometimes would have to produce the press releases. Sometimes you would have to prepare the speeches for your boss, and sometimes you would have to prepare the brochures for the material that you have made and you have created for your products. Another function of public relations is researching. Sometimes you are researching the beliefs, sometimes you are researching values, and sometimes you are researching for the attitudes that influence your behavior. So these beliefs, these values, and these attitudes influence your behavior a lot. Another function of public relation is marketing communication. Other marketing related functions such as creating brochures, sales literature, promotion material, that one we are also going to study, and we will also see that how you can make one good brochure, how you can actually make a good promotional material, how you can actually make or write down the literature for your material, how you can create these proposals, how you can write down letters, how you can actually, you know, make these JPGs for the pictures, and how you can actually design your pamphlets, flyers, and then send them into the market. Then there are some community relations, for example, positively putting forth the organization messages and images within the community. So this is what we are also going to take care of while we talk about different functions of public relations. Now, consumer relations can be written and verbal kind of communications which are in fact interfacing with the consumers. So you are supposed to take care of the written and verbal communication. That is also going to be one of our targets to improve. As I told you in the beginning, that I will be working on your speaking as well as writing skill a lot, because they are your productive skills and they are thoroughly used in the market. So that was all for today. I hope that you have learned and enjoyed today's lecture a lot. We started off with explaining the linguistic structure in detail. The linguistic structure basically has something to do with explaining starting up with the phoneme, that is the smallest sound unit, and that is there in the language. Like you have so many alphabets in the language. Then those phonemes, sometimes they combine together, and always they combine together to give you morphemes. These morphemes are actually the combination of two or more phonemes which are once they are combined with, or once they are attached with your stem words, they convey you a meaning. Then we also talked about the words, the combination of morphemes. They give you a word, and you would find a lot of words in the dictionary that you can pick up a dictionary and find the meanings of different words. Another tip that I am going to give you is that once you are going to pick up the dictionary, try to remember that you are going to buy that Oxford dictionary that will help you see that how different words are being pronounced differently. Okay, there is one thing that you would see, like for example, if it's a word like apple, you would find something, the phonetic transcription would be written like apple. You would try to read that and you will see apple. It will help you see that how different words in the dictionary have been defined and have been, you know, explained, and the phonetic transcription of these words have been explained for your good self, so that you can improve your pronunciation skills. Another thing that I can share with you, if you want to actually work on your speaking pronunciation skills, what you can do is you can log on to forvo.com. If you find any word that you don't know the pronunciation for. Now the word is pronunciation, that's not pronunciation. So sometimes people pronounce different words differently and sometimes in a wrong way. So if you log on to forvo.com, let's write it down, that's forvo.com. If you log on there and if you insert a word, you would find its phonetic transcription along with its, you would help yourself develop your listening skills thoroughly. Then while we had been discussing our linguistic structure, we also discussed that how different words they combine together to give you phrases and clauses. We also learned the difference and similarity between phrase and a clause. Then we learned that how these phrases and clauses, once they combine together, they give you a sentence. A sentence can be a combination of a subject, verb, and object. Then sentences, I told you that they should not be more than 15 to 20 words. The sentences, they combine together to give you paragraphs. Paragraph, as I told you, should be between 75 to 100 words. If it's exceeding more than that, make sure that your sentences are short, terse, and concise, that convey you the complete meaning to your audiences. Then we also discussed about different paragraphs combining together to give you longer texts. Now that was a language structure that we discussed, and we also discussed that how you communicate through sounds, words, phrases, clauses, sentences, and sometimes how do you communicate through longer texts. So this is what you call discourse or a dialogue. In today's lecture, we have thoroughly discussed the theories of communication. The theories of communication, that one we have discussed are the two-step flow theory. That one we have discussed the first one, which is basically related to the mass media as the major unit of elaborating or explaining the information to the audiences. We also discussed about the concentric circle, where if the idea is being promoted by the active thinkers to the active leaders, then it will go into the active inert. If the idea is being produced by the weaker thinkers and weaker leaders, that would go, or that would carry a weaker inert. So this is how this is concentric circle, where everything is going out. Then we also discussed about the spiral of silence theory, in which we discussed that how those people who fear this, or who have got this fear of isolation, or who have this fear of marginalization. Now there is one theory known as Orientalism. Now Orientalism has something to do with that those people who do not like, for example, let me make it for you. Like these are people who stand in majority, and who are the main focus of, or the main people who fall in the society. Like for example, if we take the example of our community, we say that these are those people who can talk English. Let's take that example. Now these are those people who cannot talk English. Okay, this circle is large as compared to this one. Now these people, if they cannot touch the English people, they are being marginalized. If they are marginalized, they do not fall in the category of those people who cannot talk English. So English would think of them as superior people. Like for example, white would think itself as something good, and there is something that is black. Do you see? These white people, they don't think good of the black people. So this is what you call marginalism. The white in the middle and the black is being marginalized. The English in the middle, and those people who cannot talk English or who cannot speak English are being marginalized. Same goes with your spiral of silence theory. Those people who are in minority, they are marginalized, or they are being isolated from what is being going on in the society. So this spiral of silence theory also indicates that how some sets of our society and how some people in our society have overtaken, or have have this thing of command on everything, and they have this hold of the whole world. However, there are a few people who are lagging behind and who do not have that courage, or who do not get this advantage of sitting in the middle and sitting in the circle, and they feel isolated when they go and talk to different people. So these things should be minus. Another thing that we discussed was this Apple phone and this mobile phone thing, which also has been is also one major and common theory of communication. Like we have our communication, whole communication, in our one mobile phone that has become our only friend. But yes, it carries internet, it carries our friends, it carries our families, it carries our television and everything. So our life is being reduced to only one mobile phone, and that's one another communication. Like we are comfortable sometimes sending text messages to our friend, but sometimes we are very uncomfortable while talking to them face to face. We also talked about the this diffusion of internet in our society. Internet has really made a lot of change. If you don't know internet, if you get into it once, you cannot go out. So this theory emphasizes that very idea. Then we also discussed the goals of communication. Our basic goals are to inform, to persuade, to motivate, and to actually build the mutual understanding between yourself and your customers. You are supposed to provide the enough information. You are supposed to persuade them towards what you are saying. You are going to also see that how you are going to motivate them towards your product, and then you are also going to develop the mutual understanding. No matter how much you hate them, no matter how much dislike them, your main purpose is to be professionally or communicate with them professionally. We also discussed some of the functions of these public relation officers. I'm going to make sure that as we will move on, as BBA students, you develop this understanding of how you can go into the practical life and how you can develop yourself as good communicators, as good business communicators. Here is a list of references from where the material was being taken. I hope that you have enjoyed today's lecture. In the next lecture, we will thoroughly discuss different types of communication. We will also see that how these communication types are different from one another, and how you can work on your verbal and non-verbal behaviors to make the next person understand that whatever you are saying is good for them, and how is it different from, and how would you feel that your communication is strong enough once you are communicating with others. So this is what is going to be our target in this semester, that we shall make, and we shall focus on our productive skills a lot, because the stronger our productive skills would be, the strong communicators would be. And the only thumb rule is to work on your receptive skills first if you want to work on your productive skills. In other words, you are going to first improve your reading and listening, and then that will help you improve your speaking and writing. With that, I wish you a very good luck for this semester. I hope you have enjoyed today's lecture a lot. Theories of communication have been somewhat difficult and somewhat boring to understand, but that was really important that you understand that what's going on around us and how these abstract ideas have actually developed to construct something that actually exists in our society. So take very good care of yourself. I'll see you in the next class. Allah Hafiz.